Mega Greninja is here, and it is the first Mega Pokemon that you can get as a ranked reward by playing in the Legends EA rank battles and getting rank K before November 5th. This Mega not only gives Greninja an awesome new form, but also some new stats to play around with. So when you actually get your Mega Greninja, how should you team build with it? So today, let's break down some movesets and teammates so that way you can get the most out of this Pokemon in rank battles. So be sure to sub for more, but let's get into it. So the first thing we need to address are the stat changes that happen to Mega Greninja when it Mega evolves, and there are some really nice ones here. First off, its attack stat jumps to 125 instead of just 95. Its special attack is going to jump to 133 from 103, getting a 30-point boost, which is absolutely crazy. And its speed jumps from 122 to 142, making it even faster than you can imagine. And there are a couple other tweaks as far as the defensive stats go. It looks like each defense got 10 additional stat points. So the defense went from 67 to 77, and the special defense went from 71 to 81, meaning that this Pokemon is still relatively frail, but is going to hit incredibly powerfully, and it's incredibly fast, allowing you to get more attacks off more quickly. But how do you actually want to build this particular Pokemon? So I've got us over here on Showdown, and I think the most important thing that we need to think about when building Greninja is the fact that it has this very frail stat distribution, right? It has very low HP, it has 77 defense, it has 81 special defense, but it's incredibly fast, and it's naturally very fast. Even in its base form, naturally very, very fast Pokemon at 122 base speed in its base form. So that's incredibly solid for this particular Pokemon, which means I, in ZA at least, don't think that this Pokemon actually needs an incredible amount of actual investment as far as speed is concerned. I really don't think you need the speed investment on this particular Pokemon. I think the goal is to try and keep this Pokemon alive as long as possible, so that way you can get the most out of it. So based on that, I would go for a max HP spread. I would go for max HP on this Pokemon, and this is a special attacking Pokemon. I think that that is the route to go. However, because of its attack stat, you can get away with running a more physically offensive Greninja than going for a specially offensive Greninja. So for the sake of conversation, we'll do both Pokemon. We'll do a physical attacker and a special attacker, but I think mainly what you're going to see is this particular setup here. And I believe in this game, with its naturally high speed, you're going to see more modest Greninja running around than seeing something like timid that's going to boost that speed even further. I think you're going to end up going for a modest. Now that could change depending on how people are building Mega Greninja, and you're seeing more Greninja. Maybe it's like literally in a situation where you're 1v1 against another Greninja. You know, if they have more speed and they're able to get their attacks off more quickly, you may want to opt in for a more timid based particular setup for this Pokemon rather than going for a modest setup. But I think that modest is what you're going to see the majority of the time, at least right now, as we're continuing to learn this particular game. Now, as far as move sets go for this Pokemon, now obviously I will say, if you're running a more, you know, offensive, physically offensive Mega Greninja, you're going to do just the same thing, HP max, but instead you're going to go for an attack maxed out instead of the special attack, and you're going to run adamant more than likely, and then that last point you can just slot into the speed to give you an extra stat point there. Again, if you're going to go for the more speedy option to try and get more attacks off, you're going to go for Jolly for this particular one instead of going for the timid, which you would do with special attackers. You're going to go for Jolly here. But again, I think if you're going for the big damage, you're probably going to end up just going for the offensive nature that's going to boost that attack stat. So going back to the Greninja, I think you're going to see the most of the time, this is going to be the most common Greninja set that you're most likely going to see. That is going to be the special attacker. Now, what are you going to see most of the time on this particular Greninja, and how should you approach it? Now, I think the most common move that you're going to see is Water Shuriken. I think this is just going to pop up all the time. This is its signature move. It hits fast, does a lot of damage. The other option, as far as going for a particular attack with this Pokemon, is Hydro Pump. I think Hydro Pump is going to be the attack that is going to be of choice in this particular game. However, you have to weigh the cooldown options. So I think the big thing that you want to recognize is the cooldown. Like I said, Water Shuriken is a 3-second cooldown time, very quick, and you're going to hit 5 attacks with this particular move. You're going to hit it 5 times with a little Shuriken. However, let's go to my Feraligatr, because I know that Pokemon actually has Hydro Pump on it. We're going to go to change moves here. We're going to look at Hydro Pump. That's coming in at a 12-second cooldown. So while you get more power off the rip with Hydro Pump, you're going to do more with the Water Shuriken because you can simply hit the Pokemon more frequently because of that short cooldown time. So I think if you're going for this particular Pokemon, you're probably going to end up going Water Shuriken. I think it just makes the most sense. Now, you are also a Dark type and you want to maximize your stab damage. So I think you're going to end up wanting to run Dark Pulse on this Pokemon. As far as the rest of its moves are concerned, I don't see any other special Dark type move that's going to give you a huge advantage and utilize that stab. So I just don't think that there is another move that is more beneficial in the second slot than Dark Pulse. You want to maximize that stab damage. So Water Shuriken and Dark Pulse are going to be the two things that you're going to see most commonly on this particular Pokemon. However, I think for the third move, the most common thing that you're going to see on these special attacking sets is going to be a coverage move, but the main coverage move that I think you're going to end up seeing is going to be Ice Beam. It has a shorter cooldown than a lot of the other moves in ZA as far as like Blizzard is concerned and things like that. And it gives you coverage into grass types that are going to do super effective damage to you. So you have both of those options to kind of give yourself an edge that you wouldn't have otherwise. So I think this is going to be the most common set. And that final move that you're going to get here is Protect. You're going to be able to defend yourself a little bit. That is going to be the most common thing that you see on the special attacking variation of Greninja. However, moving on to the physical attacking variation, I really truthfully don't know what people are going to be running. Probably Liquidation, right? You're going to see Liquidation pop up. The thing that I think is actually really interesting about the physical attacking Greninja is you have a lot more options at your disposal. There's a lot more coverage moves that you can kind of get away with. For example, you have Brick Break at your disposal. You have Gunk Shot for coverage move, like looking at something like hitting, you know, a Meganium or hitting another grass type for super effective damage. You have Gunk Shot for that opportunity, right? There's some more coverage options. There's even Ice Punch here. I think the other thing that you're going to see is Night Slash. You're going to be able to get that stab damage, but then again, this coverage as far as physical attacks go is much higher than you get with the special attacking side. It even gets Rock Slide. Shadow Sneak is here. Keep scrolling. I mean, I guess it does get Sludge Wave for the special attacking set if you wanted to go that route. You do also get access to Trailblaze. You have U-Turn at your disposal. U-Turn I could actually see being pretty useful for this particular Pokemon. The only downside that you get to running a physically offensive Greninja is that you lose the edge of being able to keep yourself at a distance. This Pokemon is very squishy and it's going to die very quickly, even with that HP investment, which means that having the edge and being able to stay back and throw attacks at the Pokemon is going to be really beneficial for Mega Greninja, because you're able to stay back, avoid damage. People have to get close to you to attack. That not only gives you time to land more attacks, but it also gives you time to see the enemy approaching and make an appropriate swap. So I still think with this Pokemon, you're probably going to go with Protect in this third slot, and then you're going to go with a random coverage move that you think you need for your particular team. That could be Brick Break, it can be Gunk Shot, it can be Quick Attack, it could be U-Turn, whatever you think you need to keep your Greninja in the fight longer. That is going to be your option. Now, I do briefly want to talk about the fact that, you know, you can use Greninja without the Mega Stone. There is merit to using Pokemon without the Mega Stones, right? So this Pokemon is still good without that. However, again, it is that squishier option, and I don't know that it's going to be as common, but you can do it if you don't want to focus your Mega Energy on this particular Pokemon. So I think that what you can do with this to get away with it, we don't obviously have to worry about the ability here in this game. We can go max HP, and we can go max special attack, do the same thing. But the difference is you may actually want to consider going for a more speedy nature with this particular Pokemon. Because then you have to contest with the other Mega Evolved Pokemon, and the fact that this Pokemon's naturally so speedy would be a benefit to maybe go for a more speed-oriented nature, and going for a more defensive item, potentially going for something like a Focus Sash here to be able to take one hit at least and secure maybe a KO or two before this Pokemon goes down. That could be really beneficial, and I think you're going to run the exact same moveset. But again, I think that item that you're looking for is Focus Sash for this particular Pokemon, because that allows you to take a hit, stay alive with 1 HP, and then be able to dish out some additional damage, maybe secure a KO or two, then let this Pokemon go down. So I just wanted to briefly talk about normal Greninja in this video, because Mega Greninja is an option, but playing with other Greninjas is still an option. You can still use a base form Greninja and get away with it. But let's talk about some teammates that I think will be good for this particular Pokemon. Now, I think that in general, a Fire, Water, Grass core is going to be really solid for Mega Greninja, and there's a handful of different Pokemon that could work in its favor. For example, let's pull up Venusaur or even Victory Bell here. Both of these Pokemon are really solid options as teammates. Why are they solid options? They cover the grass weakness as well as the electric weakness. They resist both of those that are super effective into Mega Greninja. On top of that, they both have pretty decent bulk. They both have relatively decent bulk. This Pokemon can take some hits, solid special defense especially, and this is pretty comparable as far as defenses go to that Venusaur. So both of these Pokemon, same typing, can kind of fill that same role on a team. And the other thing about this is that Greninja also covers for these Pokemon's weaknesses, right? Gardevoir is very popular in the meta right now. It's a very powerful special attacker, and these Pokemon are both weak to Gardevoir simply because of their poison typing. So having Greninja be a Pokemon that can swap into the Gardevoir and potentially take a KO before it can land like a Moonblast or something on the Greninja, that is really solid because obviously Greninja's dark typing makes it resistant to that psychic type attack that would do super effective damage to Venusaur. As far as other grass types go, there's a handful of options. Like Meganium's actually a pretty solid wall. Running Meganium with things like Giga Drain and screens make this a really solid wall to not only be annoying and take some hits, but also be able to swap Greninja in under the condition of screens. That could actually be really solid for you. So that is pretty solid. You could probably run like Dazzling Gleam or something on this as well. That can be really solid for this particular Pokemon, but also fire types are going to be very beneficial. Again, we're talking about Fire, Water, Grass cores here. So Pokemon that would fit that bill, Emboar. Emboar is actually really solid as a partner for this. Again, you know, you're avoiding some damage that would be super effective looking at the like grass typing and things of that nature. That's going to give you an advantage. Emboar also pairing very nicely with the fact that it is a fighting type, again weak to those psychic type attacks. That is going to give you the option to swap Greninja in and eat those psychic attacks for Emboar. That's another really solid play for this particular Pokemon. But also, Emboar is just incredibly bulky. You can give it a lot of health, and honestly, this Pokemon could probably benefit from some like defensive investment with a defensive item. Like I could see this running like max attack, maybe some defensive investment, and throwing on some HP and giving it an assault vest next to a Mega Greninja, and that could be really solid. It gets a lot of coverage moves as well. I think it gets access to things like Wild Charge, it gets Rock Slide, Trailblaze. Like this thing gets a ton of coverage moves, allowing it to just absolutely dish out some damage. So like throwing an assault vest on this thing and maybe doing something along the lines of like this for your spread, doing something like that maybe, and then throwing on, like I said, assault vest. And then we could do, you know, like Wild Charge, or do something, you know, Flame Charge, or do Flare Blitz, something to that effect. Just give this Pokemon a ton of different coverage moves, obviously like Drain Punch or something, to do some stab damage. This Pokemon can just absolutely be a problem, especially, you know, paired with some other solid grass type Pokemon. This can be an absolute annoyance next to Mega Greninja because of its bulk that you can apply to it. I don't necessarily think you have to go for a Mega Stone. Again, I think getting another item on this Pokemon with the Mega Greninja is going to be the best course of action to get the most out of it. Other fire types. Just trying to think of some fire types here that maybe would be decent with this Pokemon. Obviously, there's not a format for this on Showdown, so I have to kind of just dig through here. Potentially Chandelure. Chandelure could actually be pretty fun next to this Pokemon. I don't think something like Talonflame would be very good, or Charizard would be very good. Specifically because they also share that electric weakness, which makes things a little complicated as far as playing against your resistances. So I don't think those two Pokemon are really solid for it. But definitely something like, continue looking here, Delphox could be beneficial here. You resist the dark type moves, that would be super effective, and the ghost type moves, that would be super effective. Playing next to Greninja, that would be really beneficial. Those two Pokemon could work well together. So there are a handful of options that would actually be pretty solid next to this. And we'll throw Delphox up there just for the sake of conversation here. But yeah, there's a handful of different teammates that you could pair with this. And I'm not saying you just have to go Fire, Water, Grass Core, but I think Fire, Water, Grass Core is the easiest way to build around Mega Greninja and get the most out of that particular Pokemon. But that is going to be it for this video, guys. Let me know in the comments below how you plan to build your Mega Greninjas. Let me know what teammates you're using with it and how you plan to use Greninja in general in ranked ZA. I will have a video featuring a Greninja team coming very soon. That's pretty much how the style of these videos is going to go. I'm going to do a moveset guide, and then later on I will have a video featuring that Pokemon on a team. So make sure you sub for more like this in the future, because there's a lot more ZA content on the way. I'm absolutely loving competitive ZA. I've got a team building guide that's going to be on the way. There's a lot of stuff coming very, very soon for this particular game, so I hope you guys are excited for more ZA coverage, and I've got even more stuff cooking up. But like I said, that is going to be it. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more videos like this in the future. It helps me out, helps the video out, helps the channel out immensely. But until next time, peace.